So we have already seen that we have many duties around us. So we have to attend to the duties, attend to the work in the external world. External things, we have to work for that. But psychologically, we understand that we have no work. So in this time, so what kind of work we have? Is there anything? What kind of work we have with related to the inner world, the psychological world? And what should not do in the psychological world? Is there any ban for ourselves that we should not do anything in the psychological world? What are the restrictions in the psychological world that we should not do all those things? So, what are the things we have to do psychologically? What are the things not to do psychologically? So, psychological world is something, and the physical world is something. In the physical world, we have many duties. What is the required duty we have to do, we have to execute. But what is our responsibility with related to the psychological world? What are the things we have to do and what are the things we should not do? So we have to discuss for this today's meeting. Actually, psychologically, who am I? If I ask the question, who am I? And go through that and finding certain experience out of that, that is a different thing. That is yoga process. And through yoga process, we can have many experience, many feelings, many kind of understanding. That is different thing. But here, what we are going to find out is that with the normal mind, as a human mind, we have many duties to the external world. In the psychological world, naturally we have some reactions. In the psychological world, each and every moment when we face the situations, we have some reactions. But that reaction comes and goes. There is no permanent reaction. The situation may be permanent, but the reaction is not permanent. The moment by moment it is new. So we need not try to control, need not separate any emotions. So through yoga process, we may have some dealing with the emotions also. That is different. But establishing such kind of emotions in a good state of mind, good feeling all the times, that is yoga process. But the yoga process, it is a different kind of work. But we are not speaking like that. We are not touching that subject. So the main division is that only the external world and the internal world. So the internal world, the very nature of the internal world is innocence. Innocence is the highest state. But from our birth onwards, the innocent state is already there. But because of our intelligence, because of our planning and other things, some intellectual process alone, we are giving some disturbance to the innocent state. Otherwise, the innocent state is the natural state. The innocent state is the real state. For that, we have no work at all. So our work is related only to the external world. But in the psychological world, it must be natural. So the natural world, in the natural situation, everything will be all right. We need not separate anything. But in many process, many teachings, many yoga process, they have many established many system of yogic practices. Thereby we can keep our mind in a good emotion. So that is a different work. But it is a kind of, so unknown, some way it may be a good one, but at the same time, mainly speaking, straightly speaking, it is not necessary, because the very nature of the mind is all right. There is no problem in the nature of the mind. Because, for example, if you take the example of a child, the child does not have any problem. It is in the innocent state. So it is the original state of our mind. So to create the innocence, we need not work for that. But all our problem, all our issues are only to the external world. For the external world, we have to work. Otherwise, we cannot succeed. We cannot arrange the things of the world. But psychologically, no psychological arrangement is needed. And here we have to understand. So the very understanding that we have no work to arrange ourselves to the conclusion is essential. Then only our idea, our effort will be shifted to the external world. So there is a must. We cannot leave the world. We cannot leave the situation. So to the possible extent, we have to work. But at the same time, we have no work with related to the psychological emotions, psychological situation, psychological expression. So what all may be the expression that will come and go. That is the nature of our mind. For that, we need not have any work. In the case of anger, there are different stages. For example, somebody misbehaved with us. The person who is doing wrong towards us, maybe the status of him may be equal. You and the other person may be equal. So immediately when we got the anger, so immediately we respond and we can set the angry words to the other person. For sometimes the person who may be the reason for the anger may be your superior officer. So in that case, you will not immediately express your anger towards the superior officer. So you have some control over the anger. So here, when anger comes, in the first stage of anger, it is unconscious. When the anger arises, it comes from the unconscious recesses of your mind. So it comes. After the arising of anger, you recognize that you are having anger. So when you are conscious of anger, the first stage of the anger is unconscious. The second stage of the anger is conscious anger. Then only you know you are having anger. So after that alone, you have the option to whether you have to express the anger to the other person or not. So that comes in this third stage. In the third stage alone, you have the choice whether you have to apply the anger to the other person or not. So in the application stage, you can apply or you need not apply. So that is in your hand. That is in the hands of your intellect. For if the other person who is responsible for the anger, maybe a similar status of yourself, they can easily express your anger. But the person who is the cause of the anger, maybe a superior officer, and then you need not express the anger. So it is in your hand. But if the anger comes in the first stage, it is unconscious stage. The unconscious anger will not create any action in the outside world. Only after making it in your conscious state, after your intellect gives consent to expression, then only you express the anger. So there are many stages before the expression of our anger.
Yes, I understand. My question was, even if there is no external happening, I'm just sitting in my room, and then, as you say, a thought comes which create anger. Everything is unconscious, right? Then anger is being felt, and then the moment of anger being, I'm alone in the room, nobody's in the room. It's not a problem of external world. It's just internal happening, psychological happening. So anger came up, right? At that point in time, I also need to make a choice. Okay, do I flow with the anger because anger can bring more thoughts and more emotions, or do I fight with the anger? No, I shouldn't be angry. It's not okay to be angry, etc., etc. All those things are things which are the habit, right? Not doing any of those, just being aware of anger happening and anger going away, just witnessing and being aware of that. That's inner doing. Maybe it's not doing. Maybe it's not the right word to say doing. But if I will not do it, if I will not be aware or witness, then probably collaboration with the anger is going to happen because that's the habit.
So the anger is not a permanent thing. It is a momentary one. Just like a flashlight, it comes and goes away, disappears. You need not witness it. You need not aware of it. So the moment, so it is a second stage. In the first stage, it just like a flashlight, it comes and disappears. So afterwards, you are aware of that. After aware of that, the original anger will not be there. So if you want to renew it, or you need not renew it. Whether you are renewing it or not is the question. Whether you go along with the anger or flow with the anger, that is not necessary. So whatever may be the emotion, it comes and disappears. It is not a static thing.
Okay, so how do you treat the awareness of this happening?
So awareness, whenever you are aware, then only you know that you have anger. So that is the awareness. But at the same time, you have no work at all. Your work, whether it is necessary to express the anger to the other person or not, that is your choice. That you have to, that is the role of your intellect. Your intellect has to come to a conclusion like that. But you need not eliminate anger from you. Anger disappears on its own. You need not make it disappear. But if you want to do any work, thereby you are creating some strength to the emotion. Otherwise, it is a momentary. Just like a flashlight, it comes and disappears.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Lani, if you want to say anything, you can translate.
Yes, I wanted to maybe take Danny's question and maybe a little bit more focus about it. I feel that it's an important point. What Danny is saying actually is that he feels that there's automatic reaction going on for or against the feeling, either indulging the feeling or fighting with the feeling. And in his understanding, he sees that if he is not applying awareness to the situation, then he will find himself either fighting with the emotion, or he will find himself indulging in the emotion. So he must keep himself awake in order not to be carried away by either of these indulgence or fighting.
Unconscious reactions.
So here, fighting with the other person, we are fighting. If you want to fight with the other person, if you decide we have to fight with the other person, we can take the anger in our hand and we can use the anger towards the other person. If you do not choose the fight, the emotion will go away from ourselves. You need not send away our emotion. The emotion will go away on its own. We need not send it away. But we have to choose whether we have to decide whether we have to fight with the other person or not. That is in our hand. That is in the hand of our intellect. If for example, if the other person may be your superior officer, if the other person is your superior officer, the intellect will not select the fight. So if you do not select the fight, then the emotion will go away on its own. But at the same time, if the other person may be a subordinate to you, and you may select, you have to fight. Your intellect may be select to fight. Then you can give strength to the anger, and you can apply the anger to the other person. So otherwise, the anger comes in the first stage is different. When you apply to the other person is different. Moment by moment, the anger is new. There cannot be any old one. The earlier anger is the unconscious anger. The unconscious anger becomes conscious anger in the second stage. In the third stage alone, it takes the role of action. When the unconscious anger takes the role of action, it goes away three stages. The first stage is unconscious anger, second stage is conscious anger, and the third stage alone is the action.
So in the third stage, in the action stage, I need to decide if I do something about it or not do something about it.
So you have the choice. You can decide, but at the same time, if the other person may be a subordinate, you will not decide that you should not apply the anger. You will decide that you have to apply the anger. That will be your decision. But if it is if the third person is the superior officer, your decision will be that you should not do anger. You should not execute the anger. Your decision will be like that.
But if all this is happening in my room, there's nobody there, just myself. I also have the three stages: unconscious anger, conscious anger. I mean, I'm aware that I'm angry, and then the third stage is, what do I do with this anger? And there is nobody in the room; it's just myself.
So when there is nobody in the room, then how can you express your anger to the other person? So you have no chance to express your anger. So you can have the angry thinking. The angry thinking that
yes.
you can develop your angry thinking, and
yes.
thereby you can create anger within yourself. That is not that is a different thing. So if it is a real situation, then you have to apply the anger to the other person. That alone is the real situation. But in your private room, you are creating an imaginary situation. Even though it is an imaginary situation, some real anger may come, but it will be there only because of your imagination. You are developing the anger. You are renewing the anger within yourself.
Yes. So the question is, when I'm alone in the room, will I still have the three stages? The unconscious anger coming up. Let's say my neighbor is doing some noise, and then it arises some anger, right? So anger came up, then awareness of the anger, and then the third stage is.
Third stage is also your decision. Your taking decision is the third stage. If you think that you have to apply the anger, if you decide like that, some emotion will come, the anger will come. But anyhow, each and every moment, new anger alone has to come. There cannot be any constant anger. Only the renewed anger alone will come.
Namaste, Shri Bagavath.
Okay.
Um, for me, I know the answer to your question.
Mm.
I know it intellectually. I know there is nothing for me to do inwardly. Whatever I experience in myself, I know there is not a wrong, there is no wrong reaction. The reactions, whatever will come up is the right one. And still, in whatever I experience inside myself, sometimes I can feel some suffering coming up. And then, of course, there will be the unconscious reactions to this suffering, to this kind of suffering. And I know in my mind that there is nothing to do with this. I know I cannot, there is nothing I should do consciously about it. So that gives me an attitude of a mental attitude of there is nothing I can do. So I, in a way, I wait, or I won't even say I surrender, but I know there is nothing to do. And maybe that gives me a kind of idea that as long as this suffering comes up, there is something in me, maybe some resistance to this suffering, because the suffering brings up resistance to suffering. I don't want to suffer. And I know there is nothing to do, but still, maybe that gives me an idea that there is something in me that wants to as long as I want the suffering not to be there, there is something not whole in my understanding, or not complete. But then there is nothing for me to do either. I cannot do anything about it. So in a way, I wait.
But the main thing is that we have to understand and conclude that we have no work psychologically. Some pain may be there. That is natural. So if it is natural, we cannot question it. If we have the capacity to question it, we can question why do you come like this? We can do something, but it is natural. But in spite of that, you unconsciously you may fight with yourself. That is different. For example, somebody comes to our house and he wants to go to the upstairs, and we take him to the upstairs. And in the upstairs, the moon is there in the sky. He is telling that I want to catch the moon. What do you say? If you can catch.
I can try.
So in this way, psychologically, we have no work at all. In spite of that, if you do some work to set right ourselves, that is meaningless. But meaningless work, but we cannot say don't do meaningless work. If you are ready to do some meaningless work, we can encourage to do some meaningless work. So psychologically, all work are meaningless. If you want, if somebody is adamant to do some meaningless work, we can encourage you. You go along with your meaningless work. You catch the moon. By all means, you can catch the moon. So in this way, psychologically, the main thing is that we have to understand we have no work at all. After understanding, unconsciously with our habit pattern, we can unconsciously struggle with ourselves, fight with ourselves to separate ourselves. That is meaningless.
Yes.
But let it be unconscious.
Yes. Can you say that fighting with ourselves, or trying to catch the moon, trying to do something with our feelings, is the real suffering? Like when I have this feeling of suffering, is because I'm trying to catch the moon, because I want
Yeah.
suffering to vanish. And I feel
But
this.
at the same time, but we have to understand it is meaningless. So if you understand it is meaningless, then you'll all unnecessary struggling will stop, unnecessary work also will stop.
You say it's an intellectual understanding. And intellectually, I fully grasp it, understand it, agree with it fully. I don't see any other way. And how you say, still you try to catch the moon. You something in you is still fighting and
So,
not accepting suffering or.
so intellectual understanding is enough. You need not expect more than something beyond intellect. So intellectual understanding is enough. You have to satisfy with your own understanding. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Lanier, the time is up.
Yes, we are already over the limit. It was very, very interesting today. Thank you, Bagavath. Very, very good conversation. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Okay.
And next week we are
Next week we'll meet.
possible. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Thank you, Mr. Babulan.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you all.
Thank you. And stop recording.